The Grand Conclave Hall stretched across 3 kilometers of polished stone and living crystal. Light from a dozen captured stars filtered through the ceiling, casting rainbow shadows across the assembled delegates. This was Thessar Prime, the heart of galactic civilization, where 100 species gathered to decide the fate of worlds. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood alone at the speaking platform. She was a small woman by human standards, with gray streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of decades in diplomatic service. Her formal uniform was simple compared to the flowing robes and bioluminescent displays of the alien delegates around her. She held no weapons, carried no impressive technology. She had only her words and the hope that today would be different. It would not be different. Honored members of the Galactic Governing Council, Elena began, her voice steady and clear through the universal translators. Earth presents its petition for elevated membership status. For 40 years, humanity has served as a provisional member of this body. We have met every requirement placed before us. We have exceeded every benchmark established for advancement. She activated her display, showing charts and figures that represented 4 decades of human achievement. Trade agreements honored, scientific contributions made, peacekeeping missions completed, humanitarian aid delivered to 17 worlds in crisis. We ask only for what we have earned, Elena concluded, recognition as full and equal members of the galactic community. Silence filled the chamber. Then came the sound Elena had learned to dread, clicking, whistling, thrumming, the laughter of aliens who found humanity amusing. High Speaker Sorath of the Velkari Dominion rose from his elevated position. His body was made of living crystal, beautiful and terrible, catching the starlight and breaking it into 1,000 sharp edges. The Velkari had been civilized for 9 million years. They viewed younger species the way humans might view insects. The Council recognizes the petition of Earth, Sorath said, his voice like wind through broken glass. And the Council finds it entertaining. More laughter rippled through the chamber. 40 years, Sorath continued, the longest provisional period in our recorded history. Do you know why, Ambassador Vasquez? Would you like to understand why Earth remains outside our ranks? Elena said nothing. She had learned that silence was sometimes the only dignity available to her. Sorath activated his own display. Images of Earth appeared in the air above the assembly. Cities, farms, oceans, people. They still consume the flesh of other creatures, Sorath announced, and the chamber filled with sounds of disgust. They spend 1/3 of their existence unconscious, sleeping like primitive animals. They wage war against their own kind, dividing themselves by the color of their skin, the content of their beliefs, the imaginary lines they draw on their world. He showed images of human conflict, wars, famine, pollution, the worst moments of human history, stripped of context and presented as evidence of failure. They worship invisible beings, Sorath said. They believe in things they cannot prove. They create art that serves no function. They waste resources on games and entertainment. They are chaotic, emotional, and dangerous. Ambassador Tyrell of the hegemony of Tan rose to speak. The Tan were massive beings covered in thick plates of natural armor. They had conquered 60 worlds before joining the Council, and they had never let anyone forget it. I have worked with humans, Tyrell said. They are useful for simple labor. They can follow basic instructions, but they lack the discipline for true civilization. They question orders. They demand explanations. They believe their opinions have value. Laughter again. Louder now. The collective of minds, a networked species that shared consciousness across billions of bodies, spoke through one of their representatives. We have studied human neural architecture. Their brains are inefficient. They think slowly. They forget important information. They make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. They are, to be direct, a failed experiment in evolution. Elena stood motionless through all of it. Her face showed nothing. Her hands remained steady at her sides. Inside, something old and cold was settling into her chest, something that felt like the closing of a door. Earth's petition is denied, Sorath announced formally. Furthermore, the Council votes to implement an observation period to determine whether humanity should retain even provisional membership. The humans will submit to regular inspections of their civilization. They will provide full access to their technology, their communications, their governance. If they refuse, they will be expelled from the galactic community entirely. The vote was overwhelming. Species that had benefited from human aid voted against Earth. Species that had been saved by human medicine voted against Earth. Species that depended on human trade voted against Earth. Everyone wanted to be on the winning side. Elena waited until the chamber fell silent. Then she spoke, just one sentence. Earth thanks the Council for this clarity. She turned and walked out of the chamber. Her steps were unhurried. Her posture was straight. She did not look back at the delegates who were already returning to other business, already forgetting about the primitive species that had dared to ask for equality. The doors closed behind her. In the corridor, her aide Marcus fell into step beside her. He was young, barely 30, still idealistic enough to be angry about what had just happened. Ambassador, we should file a formal protest. We should demand a review of the voting process. We should do none of those things, Elena said quietly. We've been filing protests for 40 years, Marcus. We've been demanding fairness for 4 decades. Do you know what that has achieved? Marcus was silent. It has achieved nothing, Elena answered her own question. Because they were never going to accept us. Not today. Not in 100 years. Not ever. They don't want partners. They want servants who are grateful for the opportunity to serve. They reached the shuttle bay. Human ships waited there, small and plain compared to the elegant vessels of other species. Elena paused at the entrance to her transport. I've spent my entire career believing that if we just tried harder, if we just gave more, if we just proved ourselves enough times, they would eventually see us as equals. She looked back at the gleaming towers of the council complex. I was wrong. Generosity without boundaries isn't kindness. It's an invitation to be exploited. She boarded the shuttle. As it lifted off and broke through the atmosphere of Thessar Prime, Elena opened a secure communication channel. The encryption was military-grade, developed in secret, unknown to any species outside Earth. This is Ambassador Vasquez, she said. Authentication code Prometheus 77 Alpha. A voice responded. Authentication confirmed. Awaiting instructions, Ambassador. Elena looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting. Earth, which had given so much to a galaxy that gave nothing in return. Earth, which had been patient and generous and hopeful for 40 long years. Earth, which was done hoping. Activate Protocol Prometheus, Elena said. All of it, every contingency, every preparation, effective immediately. Ambassador, please confirm. Full activation will terminate all existing agreements with... I understand what it means, Elena interrupted. The Council has made their position clear. Now we will make ours clear. Execute the protocol. Understood. Initiating Protocol Prometheus. Estimated completion of first phase, 48 hours. Elena closed the channel. She leaned back in her seat and closed her eyes. For the first time in 40 years, she felt something that wasn't frustration or hope or determination. She felt free. The galaxy had laughed at humanity. It had mocked their food and their sleep and their art and their faith. It had taken everything humans offered and demanded more while giving nothing in return. Now humanity would show them what they had been laughing at. Now the galaxy would learn what happens when Earth stops asking for permission. 48 hours after the council session, the galaxy began to change. On Thessar Prime, Administrator Velcris of the Velkari arrived at the human diplomatic mission, expecting to deliver the observation protocols. The building was a modest structure compared to the crystal towers around it, but it had always been busy with activity. Human diplomats coming and going, shuttles delivering supplies, the smell of strange food cooking in their kitchens. Now it was silent. Velcris approached the entrance. The doors were unlocked. Inside, he found empty corridors, empty offices, empty rooms where furniture still sat, but all personal items had been removed. The humans had left like ghosts in the night, taking everything that mattered and leaving only the shell behind. On a desk in the main reception area, he found a single data chip. He inserted it into his reader. The message was short and formal. To the Galactic Governing Council, Earth hereby withdraws from all treaties, agreements, pacts, and arrangements with council member species. This includes, but is not limited to, 847 trade agreements, 394 scientific cooperation protocols, 156 mutual defense arrangements, 89 cultural exchange programs, and 1,361 miscellaneous contracts. Total withdrawals, 2,847, effective immediately. Earth thanks the Council for 40 years of educational experience. Velcris read it 3 times. Then he contacted his superiors. Within an hour, the news had spread across the Council. Humanity was leaving, all at once, without negotiation, without warning. On the agricultural world of Tan 7, farmers woke to find their crops dying. For 30 years, human scientists had provided a special bacteria that helped plants grow in the harsh soil. They had given it freely as a gift of friendship. The hegemony of Tan had been so grateful that they had restructured their entire agricultural system around it. Now the bacteria was gone. Not dead, simply gone. Dissolved by a genetic timer that humanity had built into its DNA. A safety feature, they had called it, a way to prevent the bacteria from spreading uncontrollably. The Tan had never questioned it. Why would they question a gift? Emergency messages flooded the communication networks. Tan 7 could produce only 40% of its normal yield without the human bacteria. The other agricultural colonies reported the same problem. Food shortages would begin within 3 months. Famine would follow. High Commander Tyrell, who had mocked humans in the council chamber, demanded answers from his science division. "Can we recreate the bacteria?" he asked. "No, Commander. We never analyzed it fully. We had no reason to. The humans maintained it for us." "Then contact Earth. Demand they restore it." "We have tried, Commander. Earth is not responding to any communications from the hegemony." Tyrell slammed his armored fist against the wall, cracking the stone. "They cannot do this. We will take what we need by force." His advisors looked at each other nervously. No one wanted to speak the truth. The hegemony had never actually studied human military capabilities. They had assumed humans were weak because humans acted peaceful. Now they were beginning to wonder if that assumption was correct. On the other side of the galaxy, the collective of minds faced a different crisis. The quantum relay network went dark. This network connected 3 entire sectors of space, allowing instant communication across distances that would otherwise take years to cross. The collective depended on it to maintain their shared consciousness. Without it, billions of their bodies would be cut off from the whole, isolated and alone. Query: who built this network? The collective asked their historical archives. Answer: the network was constructed by human engineers over a period of 15 years. It was offered freely to all species as a contribution to galactic infrastructure. Maintenance has been performed exclusively by human technicians. Query: can we maintain it ourselves? Answer: negative. The technology involved is not fully understood. Human engineers use principles that do not match our theoretical frameworks. We accepted their help without questioning their methods. The collective experienced something rare for their species: fear. Billions of minds suddenly facing the possibility of silence. On Medical Station Karath 9, doctors discovered that their supplies of human-developed medicines had expired overnight. The cure for Veloxian wasting syndrome, a disease that had killed millions before humans solved it, simply stopped working. The genetic therapy for crystalline decay, which saved thousands of Velkari children every year, became inert. 17 different treatments for 17 different species, all provided freely by Earth, all suddenly useless. Dr. Marathi, a Velkari physician, contacted Earth's medical division directly. The response was automated. "Thank you for your inquiry. Earth's medical assistance programs have been terminated. All licenses for human-developed treatments have been revoked. We recommend you develop alternative solutions. Earth wishes you success in your future endeavors." Marathi stared at the message. In her ward, patients were already beginning to suffer. Children who had been improving were declining. Adults who had been stable were getting worse. She had never thanked the humans for their help. None of them had. They had simply expected it to continue forever. The universal translators failed next. These small devices, worn by every species in the galaxy, allowed instant communication across language barriers. They had been developed by a joint scientific effort. But the core programming, the part that actually worked, was human code. Elegant, efficient, and apparently designed with an expiration date. Diplomats on Thesser Prime suddenly found themselves unable to understand each other. Trade negotiations collapsed when neither side could comprehend the terms. A minor border dispute between two small species escalated into violence when their translators stopped working in the middle of talks. High Speaker Sorath called an emergency session of the council. It took 3 hours just to establish basic communication protocols. Half the delegates couldn't participate because they had no way to understand the proceedings. "How is this possible?" Sorath demanded. "How did humanity embed themselves so deeply into our civilization without anyone noticing?" The answer came from an unlikely source, a minor species called the Gentle Ones, who had always been friendly with humans. "You didn't notice because you weren't paying attention," their ambassador said simply. "For 40 years, humans solved problems. They asked nothing in return. They took no credit. They wanted only to help. You were so busy looking down on them that you never looked at what they were building." "Building?" Sorath's crystal form flickered with confusion. "They built nothing. They had no great projects, no impressive achievements. They built everything," the ambassador replied. "They built the foundation under your feet, and now they have removed it." Ambassador Elena Vasquez appeared one final time on the Galactic Communication Network. Her transmission was brief. "To the Galactic Governing Council and all member species, humanity offered partnership for 40 years. We were answered with mockery. We gave our technology freely. It was taken for granted. We asked for nothing except respect. We received contempt." She paused and something cold settled into her expression. "We do not require anything from the galactic community. We never did. Our gifts were genuine. Our kindness was real. But kindness is not weakness, and patience is not submission. We choose to return to our own path. We wish you well in finding your own solutions to the problems we once helped you solve. Earth will not be responding to further communications." The transmission ended. In the council chamber, Sorath received intelligence reports from his advisors. They had finally compiled a complete list of everything humanity had given the galaxy over 40 years. Everything that was now gone. The document was enormous. It contained thousands of items, technologies, medicines, agricultural advances, engineering solutions, artistic contributions, philosophical frameworks that had influenced dozens of cultures. And beneath it all, one terrifying note. This list represents only what humanity chose to share openly. Intelligence estimates suggest their actual capabilities may be significantly greater. We have no reliable data on human military strength, technological ceiling, or strategic reserves. Sorath's crystal form dimmed. For the first time in his 900 years of life, he felt something he had never experienced before. He felt small. "What have we done?" he whispered. No one had an answer. 3 months after humanity's withdrawal, the Galactic Council met in emergency session for the 47th time. The chamber that had once glittered with pride and power now felt heavy with despair. High Speaker Sorath looked out at the assembled delegates. Many seats were empty. Some species had stopped attending entirely, too busy dealing with crises at home to waste time on politics. Others had lost the ability to travel safely after human-maintained shipping routes fell into disrepair. This session will examine the full scope of human contributions to galactic civilization, Sorath announced. His voice was quieter than before. The arrogance had been burned out of him by weeks of watching his civilization struggle with problems it had forgotten how to solve. A historical committee had been working around the clock to document everything humanity had done during their 40 years as provisional members. The presentation they delivered changed everything. "We begin with energy production," the committee chairman said. 32 years ago, humanity shared their fusion reactor designs with any species that requested them. They asked for nothing in return. They claimed it was simply a gift. Today, 60% of council worlds rely on human fusion technology for their primary power generation. The numbers appeared on the display. 60%. More than half the galaxy's civilizations, dependent on technology they had mocked as primitive. "We do not fully understand how these reactors work," the chairman continued. "Human engineers always perform the maintenance. We accepted this arrangement because it was convenient. Now we have reactors we cannot repair and cannot replace. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Medicine, the chairman continued. Over 40 years, human xenobiologists cured 11 extinction-level plagues across 9 species. They did this quietly without seeking recognition. Several of these cures were attributed to local scientists who simply accepted the credit. A Velkari delegate shifted uncomfortably. His species had nearly been wiped out by crystalline decay before a cure mysteriously appeared in their research databases. They had celebrated their own genius. They had never questioned where the breakthrough actually came from. Human doctors trained physicians across the galaxy, the chairman said. They established treatment protocols that became standard practice. They created vaccines, therapies, and surgical techniques that are now considered basic medicine. We estimated that human medical contributions save approximately 4 billion lives per year across council space. 4 billion. The number hung in the air like a weight. Infrastructure, the chairman continued. The galactic calendar, which every species uses for coordination and scheduling, is based on human mathematics. It was implemented so gradually over such a long period that no one noticed the transition. Our computer systems, our communication networks, our navigation databases, all of them use human-developed standards. The chairman paused before delivering the next finding. Additionally, we have discovered that 34% of all functioning artificial intelligence systems in the galaxy run on human-developed architecture. The humans built the foundation of our computing networks and shared it freely, asking only that they be allowed to help maintain it. Why? Someone asked from the back of the chamber. Why would they do all this for nothing? The chairman had no answer. Neither did anyone else. A junior diplomat from a small, peaceful species called the Listeners rose to speak. They were known for their wisdom and their reluctance to participate in galactic politics. I have studied human culture, the Listener said. I have tried to understand their philosophy. What I found disturbed me greatly. The chamber fell silent. Humans have a concept they call service, the Listener explained. They believe that helping others is its own reward. They find meaning in contribution rather than recognition. This is not a strategy for them. It is not a trick. It is simply how they think. That makes no sense, Terrell of the Hegemony said. No species gives without expecting return. It goes against basic nature. Perhaps it goes against your nature, the Listener replied gently. But humans are different. They truly meant to help, and we took advantage of their sincerity for 40 years. The historical presentation continued. Agricultural techniques that fed refugee populations, the Council officially ignored. Engineering solutions that prevented industrial accidents. Educational programs that trained scientists across dozens of worlds. Artistic contributions that had influenced galactic culture in ways no one had tracked. Humans had been everywhere, helping everyone, asking for nothing, and the galaxy had laughed at them for it. There is one final matter, the chairman said. His voice had become very quiet. Our intelligence services have attempted to assess humanity's true capabilities, what they are able to do rather than what they chose to share. The chamber tensed. Our conclusion is disturbing, the chairman said. We cannot determine humanity's actual technological level. Their publicly demonstrated abilities do not match their theoretical capacity. Based on the sophistication of what they gave away freely, we estimate that their private capabilities may be several orders of magnitude more advanced. What does that mean in practical terms? Sorath asked. It means that everything they shared with us, the fusion reactors, the medical advances, the computing systems, may represent the equivalent of toys they gave to children. Their real technology, the things they kept for themselves, is beyond our ability to measure or understand. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Deep space telescopes had detected unusual energy signatures coming from Sol system. Massive construction projects, far larger than anything the Council had ever attempted. The humans were building something, and they weren't sharing what it was. We need to contact them, Sorath said finally. We need to apologize. We need to negotiate. They are not responding to communications, an aide informed him. Then we go to them directly. Send a diplomatic mission to Earth. I will lead it personally. Several delegates objected. The High Speaker of the Velkari Dominion, lowering himself to ask humans for forgiveness? It was unthinkable. It was humiliating. Humiliation is the least of our concerns, Sorath replied. We are facing civilizational collapse. Our food supplies are failing. Our communication networks are degrading. Our medicine is running out. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford. The diplomatic mission was approved. Sorath would travel to Earth and try to repair 40 years of damage with words and good intentions. But as he prepared for the journey, a military report arrived that changed everything. The hegemony of Tan had grown tired of waiting. High Commander Tyrell had assembled a fleet of 247 warships and sent them toward Earth. His message to the Council was defiant. Humans are primitives who grew too bold. They will be reminded of their place in the galaxy. Their technology will be seized and distributed among proper civilizations. Sorath read the report 3 times. Tyrell is a fool, he said quietly. We have no idea what we are sending those ships against. Should we warn them? His aide asked. Order them to turn back? The hegemony will not listen to Velkari orders. They never have. Sorath looked out at the stars, toward the distant point where Earth's sun burned. All we can do is wait and see what happens. And if the fleet succeeds, Sorath was silent for a long moment. If they succeed, then I was wrong about humans, and this crisis will be solved through force. But I do not believe they will succeed. I believe we are about to learn exactly how wrong we were about humanity. He began preparations for his diplomatic mission, moving faster now. Whatever happened with the Tan fleet, Sorath wanted to reach Earth before anyone else did something stupid. He had a terrible feeling it was already too late for that. 6 months after humanity's withdrawal, the Tan War fleet crossed into Sol System. High Commander Tyrell stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crushing Might, surrounded by tactical displays showing his 247 warships. The fleet was impressive by any standard. It had conquered worlds. It had crushed rebellions. It had never known defeat. Begin approach to Earth, Tyrell commanded. Standard conquest formation. Disable their orbital defenses first, then demand unconditional surrender. His officers obeyed. The fleet moved deeper into the system, past frozen outer planets, through a belt of asteroids, toward the warm inner worlds where humanity made its home. They detected the first human vessel at the orbit of Mars. It was small, barely a corvette by Tan standards. It hung motionless in space, making no attempt to flee or fight. A greeting party? Tyrell laughed. 1 ship against 200? The primitives are more foolish than I thought. Destroy it. His weapons officer fired. The plasma burst across the distance in seconds and stopped. The energy simply halted in space, a few hundred meters from the human ship. It hung there, frozen, then dissipated harmlessly into nothing. Before Tyrell could process what had happened, the human ship spoke. The voice was calm, almost friendly. Attention, Hegemony Fleet. You have entered restricted space without authorization. This is your only warning. Turn back now, and you will be allowed to leave safely. Tyrell's response was immediate. All ships concentrate fire on that vessel. Obliterate it. 246 warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma bursts, kinetic rounds, missile swarms, enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. All of it racing toward a single small ship. None of it arrived. The weapons fire simply vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed, just gone, as if it had never existed. Then the human ships appeared. They came from nowhere. No warning, no transit signatures. One moment the space around the Tan fleet was empty. The next moment, it was filled with vessels unlike anything Tyrell had ever seen. They were sleek and dark, shaped like nothing in the galactic registry. They moved without visible engines. They made no sound on any frequency. They were beautiful in the way that predators are beautiful, perfect and deadly. How many? Tyrell demanded. 47, his sensor officer replied, his voice shaking. Just 47 against our 247. Then we still outnumber them. Attack pattern. He never finished the order. The human ship struck. There was no visible weapon fire, no beams or projectiles. The Tan vessels simply stopped working. Engines died. Weapons went cold. Life support flickered to emergency reserves. 247 warships, the pride of the hegemony, rendered helpless in less than 11 minutes. Not a single Tan died. Not a single hull was breached. The humans had defeated them so completely that they hadn't even needed to kill anyone. A new transmission came through, broadcast to every ship in the fleet. Attention hegemony vessels. Your fleet has been disabled. Your crews are unharmed. You will be towed to the system boundary and released. Your navigation systems will be restored once you cross into neutral space. Return to your worlds. Tell your leaders what you witnessed here. Do not come back. Tyrell stood frozen on his bridge. Around him, his officers waited for orders that would never come. There was nothing to order. The battle, if it could be called a battle, was over. "This is impossible," Tyrell whispered. "No species has this technology. No one can do what they just did." But someone could. Someone had. And Tyrell was beginning to understand that everything he thought he knew about humanity was wrong. 2 weeks later, High Speaker Sorath's diplomatic vessel entered Sol System. Unlike the Tan Fleet, he was expected. A human escort met them at the system's edge, one of the dark, sleek ships that had disabled 247 warships without firing a shot. It guided them inward, past defenses that Sorath's sensors couldn't fully analyze, through checkpoints that seemed to exist in dimensions he couldn't perceive. What he saw as they approached Earth took his breath away. The planet was surrounded by construction. Thousands of structures orbited the sun at various distances, capturing its energy with efficiency that shouldn't be possible. A Dyson swarm, Sorath realized. The beginning of a Dyson swarm. Humanity was building a cage around their star. "How long?" he asked his science officer. "How long would this take to construct?" The officer ran calculations twice before answering. Based on visible progress and estimated construction rate, they must have started this project at least 60 years ago, 20 years before they even made contact with the Council. Sorath's crystal form flickered with shock. "They had this capability when they first approached us. They came to us as supplicants while building something like this?" "It appears so, High Speaker." Everything clicked into place. Humanity had never needed the Council. They had never needed recognition or approval or elevated status. They had approached the galaxy as equals, more than equals, and chosen to act like beginners. They had given freely because giving cost them nothing. They had been patient because they could afford patience. And the Council had mistaken their kindness for weakness. Sorath was escorted to an orbital station where President Chen Wei of the United Earth Directorate waited to receive him. The human leader was a small man, elderly, with a gentle face that seemed poorly suited for someone who commanded such terrifying power. "High Speaker Sorath," Chen Wei said, offering a traditional human greeting, a bow of the head. "Earth welcomes you." "President Chen Wei." Sorath returned the gesture awkwardly. "I come to speak on behalf of the Galactic Council. We wish to discuss the restoration of relations between humanity and the galactic community." Chen Wei's expression remained pleasant but unreadable. "Please sit. Would you like refreshments? Humans find that difficult conversations go better with food and drink." They sat. Human servants brought tea and small cakes. Sorath had never been served by humans before. He found the experience deeply uncomfortable. 40 years ago, Chen Wei began, humanity approached the Council with open hands. We offered partnership. We offered friendship. We shared our knowledge, our medicine, our technology. We asked for nothing except to be treated as equals. "We were wrong to refuse you," Sorath said. "We see that now." "Do you?" Chen Wei's voice remained gentle, but something hard lay beneath it. "Tell me, High Speaker, why do you see it now? Is it because you have recognized humanity's worth? Or is it because your crops are failing, your networks are collapsing, and your people are dying without our help?" Sorath had no answer. "For 40 years we showed you who we wanted to be," Chen Wei continued. "Partners, friends, equal sharing what we had freely, expecting nothing in return but basic respect. You showed us who you were, species that took without gratitude, mocked without consequence, and assumed that kindness meant weakness. We made a mistake. You made a choice," Chen Wei interrupted, his voice still soft, but now cold. "Every time you laughed at our art, you chose. Every time you took our gifts without thanks, you chose. Every time you denied our petitions, you chose. Do not pretend this was an accident." Sorath's crystal form dimmed. Then there is no hope for reconciliation? I did not say that. Chen Wei set down his teacup. Humanity does not seek revenge. We do not wish to rule the galaxy or punish those who wronged us. That has never been our way. Then what do you want? We want nothing from you. That is what you must understand. Chen Wei gestured at the construction visible through the station's windows. We needed nothing from the council 40 years ago. We need nothing now. Our gifts were genuine. Our help was real. We simply wanted to be good neighbors. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Dyson swarm. We will never again seek your approval, he said. We will never again petition for membership or status or recognition, but we remain willing to help those who ask with respect, not as servants, not as primitives eager for acceptance, as equals, offering aid because we choose to, not because we need anything in return. He turned back to Sorath. Go back to the council. Tell them what you have seen. Tell them that humanity's door remains open, but only to those who walk through it as friends, not as masters. Sorath rose slowly. And if we refuse? If the council decides to oppose you? Chen Wei smiled sadly. Then you will fail, not because we will destroy you, we won't, but because you will destroy yourselves. The galaxy needs to learn that cooperation is better than conquest, that kindness is not weakness, and that the measure of a civilization is not how much it takes, but how much it gives. He extended his hand in the human gesture of farewell. We have been patient for 40 years, High Speaker. We can be patient for 40 more, but we will not be mocked again. Sorath took the offered hand. The human grip was warm and firm. As he returned to his ship, Sorath carried with him a new understanding. Humanity had never been the primitives in this story. The primitives were everyone who had failed to see what was right in front of them. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, the Galactic Governing Council held its final session. The chamber that had once held representatives from 100 species now echoed with empty seats. Half the member civilizations had already left to form their own alliances. The rest were too busy dealing with internal crises to maintain the pretense of unity. High Speaker Sorath stood at the central platform, looking out at the ruins of an institution that had lasted for millions of years. The council is dissolved, he announced. His voice was tired. We have failed in our purpose. We were meant to unite the galaxy in common cause. Instead, we created a system of exploitation and contempt. We took from those who gave freely and mocked them for their generosity. We deserve what has happened to us. There was no argument, no debate. The few remaining delegates simply nodded and began gathering their belongings. An era was ending, and everyone knew it. Outside the chamber, a new galaxy was taking shape. Small alliances formed around species that had approached Earth directly, treating humans as equals rather than inferiors. These new partnerships operated on different principles than the old council. Trade agreements required fair exchange. Scientific cooperation meant shared credit. Aid came with no strings attached, offered freely and accepted with genuine gratitude. The gentle ones were among the first to join. They had always valued kindness over power, and humans had always treated them with respect. Their partnership with Earth became a model for others to follow. Surprisingly, the hegemony of Tan was next. High Commander Tyrell had been stripped of his rank after the disaster at Sol. But rather than fade into obscurity, he had done something unexpected. He had asked to meet with human leaders personally. He wanted to understand what had happened to his fleet. The humans agreed. They showed him how his ships had been disabled, technology so advanced it might as well have been magic. They explained why they hadn't killed anyone, because death was never the goal. We could have destroyed you, Captain Sarah Wong told him. Every ship, every crew member. It would have been easy, but what would that prove? That we're better at killing than you are? We already knew that. We wanted you to live so you could learn something more important. What? Tyrell asked. That being powerful doesn't mean being right, and that mercy isn't weakness. It's the hardest kind of strength. Tyrell returned to the hegemony a changed being. He spent months advocating for a new approach to galactic relations. Many called him a traitor. Many said he had been brainwashed, but some listened. When the hegemony finally sent a diplomatic mission to Earth, this time with gifts instead of weapons, Tyrell led it personally. He stood before President Chen Wei and offered something the Tan had never offered to any species in their history, a genuine apology. "We were wrong," Tyrell said. "About you, about ourselves, about what strength really means. We would like the chance to prove we can be better neighbors." Chen Wei accepted. Human agricultural specialists returned to Tan worlds to help rebuild their food production. This time, the Tan said thank you. This time, they learned how the technology worked so they could maintain it themselves. It was the beginning of a genuine partnership. As the years passed, more species followed this path. Some came seeking help with immediate crises. Others came simply because they were curious about the civilization that had built wonders while pretending to be primitive. Earth welcomed them all, but as equals, never as supplicants. 100 years after the Ridicule incident, a young Valkyrie student named Kethris sat in a classroom on Thesar Prime. The old council hall had been converted into a university, a place where species from across the galaxy came to learn together. Her teacher was human, an exchange professor named Dr. James Chen, a distant descendant of the president who had delivered humanities terms a century before. He was teaching a course on galactic history, and today's subject was the collapse of the old order. The council lasted for millions of years, Dr. Chen explained. It saw empires rise and fall. It survived wars, plagues, and disasters that would have destroyed lesser institutions. But it couldn't survive one thing: the discovery that it had been wrong about a species it considered inferior. Kethris raised her hand. "Professor, why didn't humanity just conquer everyone after the withdrawal? You had the power. You could have ruled the galaxy." It was the question every student eventually asked. Dr. Chen smiled. "Let me answer with another question," he said. "What would that have accomplished? We would have had an empire built on fear instead of a community built on respect. We would have become exactly what the council was: masters who took from everyone beneath them and gave nothing back." He pulled up an image on the display, the famous photograph of Ambassador Elena Vasquez leaving the council chamber after being ridiculed, her face showing nothing but calm dignity. Ambassador Vasquez lived to be 127 years old, Dr. Chen said. She spent her final decades writing about what she called the gift of the insult. She believed that being mocked by the council was the best thing that ever happened to humanity. "How could ridicule be a gift?" another student asked. "Because it forced us to make a choice," Dr. Chen replied. "We could have responded with anger. We could have used our hidden power to punish everyone who had laughed at us. Instead, we chose to respond with withdrawal, and then, eventually, with open hands once again. That choice defined who we became as a civilization." After class, Kethris approached Dr. Chen with more questions. She had been studying human philosophy, trying to understand the strange species that had turned the galaxy upside down. "Your people could have destroyed minds," she said. "The Valkyrie were the loudest voices mocking humanity. High Speaker Sorath made fun of your food, your sleep, your art, your faith. Everything that makes you human he called primitive." "I remember reading about that," Dr. Chen said. "What's your question? Why didn't you hate us? After everything my ancestors did, how could your people help us when we came asking for assistance?" Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. "Do you know what I think the biggest difference between humans and most other species is? It's not our technology or our endurance or our creativity. It's our relationship with time." Kethris tilted her head in confusion. "Humans live short lives," Dr. Chen explained. "Compared to Valkyrie or many other species, we're here for just a moment. That makes us think about the future differently. We know we won't live to see most of what we build, so we build for our children and their children, and generations we'll never meet." He gestured out the window at the city beyond, a city where Valkyrie and humans and dozens of other species walked together in peace. "When your ancestors ridiculed us, they were thinking about that moment, about winning the argument, about feeling superior. When we responded, we were thinking about this moment. A century later, when a Valkyrie student would sit in a classroom taught by a human and ask questions about history instead of fighting wars." Kethris considered this. "You plan that far ahead?" "We hope that far ahead," Dr. Chen corrected. "Planning implies certainty. We weren't certain of anything. We just knew that revenge would feel good for a moment and cooperation would feel good forever. So we chose forever." As Cathris left the classroom, she passed a memorial in the university courtyard. It was a simple stone with words carved in 100 languages. They laughed at us. We could have destroyed them. We chose to wait. Below that, a second inscription had been added by the Velkari themselves. And in waiting, they taught us what true civilization means. Kethris stood there for a long time, reading those words. She thought about her ancestors, who had been so proud of their millions of years of culture. She thought about the humans, who had been around for barely a blink in cosmic terms. And she understood finally what her professor had meant. The measure of a civilization wasn't how long it lasted, or how much it conquered, or how loudly it could laugh at those it considered beneath it. The measure was how it treated those who couldn't fight back. By that standard, humanity had been the most advanced species in the galaxy all along. They had just been too kind to say so.